Hello everybody, Mr. Van Groot here, 1-2, adding and subtracting real numbers. You can see we have some notes from our notebook on page 7. Hopefully you're doing well so far. Things are making sense. We're talking first about absolute value, the distance of a number from 0 on the number line. Alright, so here's 0. Here's our number line. And while you're taking these notes, I would take both the definition by the words and also reproduce the graphics that are up here, because it's very helpful to have a picture of. In fact, a lot of times the picture will make more sense to young people than the words will, and I think even for older people, like your algebra teacher, pictures often make more sense. But anyway, here we have the absolute value. So we write absolute value like this, two vertical lines. We put the number that we're trying to find the absolute value for in between them. The absolute value of 3 is 3. Notice how the absolute value is always positive because we're talking about distance from 0. 3 is 3 units away from 0. Well, guess what? Negative 3 is also 3 units away from 0. So notice that both positive 3 and negative 3 have an absolute value of positive 3 because they're 3 units away. Think about it in terms of distance. If we say it's 10 miles to Waconia, from Chaska to Waconia, is not negative 10 miles from Waconia to Chaska, it's positive 10 miles from Waconia to Chaska as well. So that's absolute value. Opposites, numbers which are the same distance from 0 on the number line but on opposite sides of 0. So negative 4 and positive 4 are opposites. Negative 10 and positive 10 are opposites. Very simple. Additive inverse, the opposite of a number used when subtracting numbers. Alright, we're going to be using this in the subtracting of real numbers. So often when you have something like this, we say, well, we aren't going to really subtract that. We're going to add the opposite of 7. Instead of 4 minus 7, it's 4 plus negative 7. So we're taking the additive inverse, the opposite of a number. So we had 7, we're making it negative 7, and we use this when we're subtracting numbers. We change it into addition. All right, if that did not make too much sense yet, hopefully it will by the end of the lesson. Learning targets. 1, I will add real numbers. Learning target 2, I will subtract real numbers. Alright, so these are related, and again we put these two learning targets together in the video because they go so well together, and one builds on the other. So here's an example. This is also in your notebook, so you might want to take some time to copy these, and I forgot to mention on the first slide, you can pause me. That's the advantage of the video. If I'm going too fast, you need some time to write things down, you can pause me. And you can then just start me up again when you are ready to. Alright, so when we're adding numbers with the same sign, meaning two positive numbers like positive 3, positive 6, you know how to do that. We don't have to talk about that. How about if they're both negative? Negative 2 plus negative 9. Okay, so we add them as if they were positive then, and we get 11, but because we're adding two negatives together, it's negative 11. This is always confusing for students because everyone thinks, is so familiar with the multiplication rule of a negative times a negative is a positive, that they think this should be positive too. It doesn't work that way with addition, so you have to find some way to keep that straight in your mind. When we add two negatives together, we get a negative result. We add them as if they were positive, 2 plus 9, 11, but the answer is negative 11. What if they have different signs? Okay, so then we actually end up, here we got a negative and a positive. We forget about the signs and we just find the difference between the two numbers. 12 minus 8 is 4. Alright, so we know it's 4. How do we know if it's positive or negative 4? Well, which of the two values have the greater absolute value? For most people, it makes more sense to say, well, do we have more negatives or more positives? We have more positives, so the answer is positive. Alright, here we have positive 3 and negative 15. Again, forget about signs at first. Just find the difference between the two numbers. The difference between 15 and 3 is 12. Is it positive 12 or negative 12? It's going to be negative 12 because we got more negatives than we got positives, so it's negative 12. Alright, so that's adding numbers with different signs and also adding numbers with the same sign. Alright, now subtracting real numbers. This is again is in your notebook, so you can refer to that and you can fill it in if it's not filled in. To subtract a number, add its opposite. Then follow the rules for signed numbers. Okay, so what we're going to do is turn this problem into the same problem we had, the same type of problem we had on the previous slide. So we have 3 minus 8. So we're going to add the opposite for that. So you see what happens. We change the sign to positive, to addition. And then the number after that sign becomes the opposite of what it is. It's 8, so it becomes negative 8. Okay, now we can follow the same rules we did with adding two numbers that have opposite signs. So 3 plus negative 8 is negative 5. Because we have more negatives than positives. So we found the difference between 8 and 3 is 5. It's got to be negative because of that. Alright. So here are some examples. And I'm going to want you to train yourself to always check the sign when you get these types of problems. No calculators on these, no calculators. It'd be pointless to even have you do these if we were going to have you use the calculators. We want you to understand how to do this with the negatives and positive numbers, the integers. And so we know your calculator can do it. We want to know that you can do it as well. So negative 4 plus negative 5. This is the situation where we're adding. So always check the sign first. Are we adding or subtracting? If we're adding, we look and see if I have two of the same kind of sign. Here we have two negatives. So remember what we did. We added the 4 and the 5. It's 9. But our answer is going to be negative. So negative 9. So always check and see. It's adding same sign. So it's negative 9. Negative 4 plus negative 5. All right. Look and see what sign we've got. Again, we've got an addition sign. This time there's two opposite signs. So one's negative, one's positive. All right. So remember what we do then. When we're adding, but they're opposite signs, then find the difference between the two numbers, 6 and 5. Forget about one's negative, one's positive. Just think about 6 and 5. What's the difference? It's 1. All right, and then think about, do I have more positives or more negatives? Here the 6 is positive, the 5 is negative, so I have more positives, so it's going to be positive 1. And by the way, these are on your homework assignments, so you might want to copy them down. Number 3, negative 8 plus 3. So negative 8 plus 3, again, we're adding. First thing to check, what's the sign? It's addition. Now, negative 8 plus 3. I got two opposite signs. I got a negative and a positive, so what's the difference between the two numbers, 8 and 3? It's 5. Do I have more negatives or more positives? More negatives, so it's going to be negative 5. Learning target 2, I will subtract real numbers. First I'll go back in case you didn't get a chance to look at number 3. So that's adding real numbers, learning target 1. Now, learning target 2, subtracting real numbers. Okay, remember what we're doing here now. We are going to change to the opposite. We're going to add the opposite instead of subtract here. So I'm changing the subtraction to addition. And I'm changing the number after the sign, only the number after the sign, never the number in front of the sign. I'm changing it to its opposite. So it's positive 7, so it's negative 7. Okay, so now it's a lot like the problem that we did on the previous slide, where there are different signs. What's the difference between 7 and 4? 3. Do I have more positives or more negatives? More negatives. So it's subtraction, change it to addition, follow the addition rules that we just had, so it's negative 3. Negative 6 minus 5. Again, look at the sign first. This is not addition, this is subtraction. So we change it to addition. And then change the sign following the addition symbol to its opposite, negative 5. Now I'm adding two negative numbers together. Two of the same sign we're adding, we add them as if they're positive. So that's 11, but the answer is negative because they keep the sign. If they're two of the same sign when we're adding, we keep the sign of the two numbers, negative 11. Alright, now you do not have to continue on with this homework. If you'd like to stop right here, that's up to you. We'll be doing this homework in class tomorrow, so come with questions, and we'll get after this homework tomorrow. And remember, no calculator on this homework. It does you no good if you're using your calculator. Alright, well, you have a great algebraic night, and I'll see you tomorrow.